Bradley, what is this? Again? You're not listening to me, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Bradley barely glanced up from his phone. Why should I? You're not my mom. I don't have to listen to you. His words stung, but I forced myself to stay steady. I had been married to Sean for 4 years now, and dealing with Bradley's rebellion had become a daily struggle. Sean's mother, Carol, standing in the doorway, watched the exchange without a word, her expression one of mild amusement. Bradley, this isn't about me being your mom. It's about respect, I said, my patience wearing thin. Whatever, he muttered, grabbing his backpack and heading for the door. I sighed and turned to Carol. Can you please help me with him, Carol? He needs boundaries. He's a teenager, Valerie, Carol said dismissively. You need to give him some space. Bradley slammed the door on his way out, and I flinched. Carol looked at me like I was the one at fault. Every day felt like a battle, and I was losing. Later, Sean walked in from work, dropping his keys on the kitchen counter. Hey, Val, what's for dinner? I sighed. I was thinking of leftovers, Sean. We need to start saving money. Bradley's demands and Carol's shopping are getting out of hand. Sean frowned. Val, we've been over this. They're my family. We can't just change how things are overnight. No, I said, my voice rising despite myself. But we have to start somewhere. I can't keep doing this alone. You're overreacting. Stop worrying so much. We'll manage, Sean said dismissively. I turned away, frustrated. I felt more like a maid than part of this family, juggling the household finances and trying to make ends meet. Even with my job, covering the endless expenses was impossible when no one else seemed to care. That evening, I found Carol reclining in the living room, surrounded by shopping bags. Did you go shopping again? I asked, unable to hide the irritation in my voice. Carol looked up, unbothered. Just a few things. Bradley needed new shoes, and I saw a nice jacket for him. Carol, we can't afford this. We're already struggling to pay the bills, I said. We'll be fine, Valerie. Don't be so dramatic, she replied. As I tried to argue, Sean stepped in. What's the problem now? We can't keep spending like this, Sean. It's not sustainable. He looked tired. You're always making a big deal out of everything. Just let it go. I felt a wave of anger and helplessness wash over me. How could they not see what was happening? The next morning, I tried speaking to Bradley again before he left for school. Bradley, we need to talk about your attitude and spending habits. Leave me alone, he said, pushing past me. The door slammed shut again. In the quiet of the house, I sat down, feeling the weight of it all pressing on me. If something didn't change soon, I would break. As I looked around the house, filled with things we didn't need and couldn't afford, a sinking realization set in. I was invisible here, and my words fell on deaf ears. I stood up and walked to the little home office where I kept the bills. It was time to stop talking and start doing something about this mess. The next morning, as I placed a plate of scrambled eggs in front of Bradley, he gave me a disdainful look. I'm not eating that, he said, pushing the plate away. It's perfectly good food, Bradley. We can't afford to be wasteful, I replied, trying to stay calm. I'm not eating leftovers, he snapped. Why can't we ever have something fresh? Just then, Carol walked into the kitchen. Bradley, darling, you don't have to eat that if you don't want to. We can go out for breakfast, she said, putting a hand on his shoulder. Carol, we can't keep spending money like this, I said firmly. We need to be more responsible. She dismissed my concerns with a wave. You worry too much, Valerie. We'll be fine. Frustration bubbled up inside me. No, we won't be fine. We need to start cutting back now. Our financial situation is serious. Carol smirked. You're overreacting. Sean will take care of everything. He always does. I wanted to scream. Later, Sean walked in and I seized the moment. Sean, we need to talk about the spending. Carol and Bradley are not listening. This can't go on. Sean sighed, looking weary. Can we talk about this later, Val? It's too early for arguments. I grabbed a stack of bills from the counter. No, we need to talk now. Look at these. We're drowning and no one is helping. He glanced at the bills, then back at me. Val, you stress too much. We'll get through it. How, Sean? By ignoring the problem and hoping it goes away? We need to set limits, and it starts with Bradley and Carol. He rubbed his temples. I'm tired, Val. Just let it go for now. Fuming, I left the kitchen, feeling more isolated than ever. No one was listening. That evening, I tried to talk to Bradley again while he was playing video games. Bradley, can we talk? He didn't even pause the game. About what? How you're going to tell me to stop having fun? This isn't about fun, Bradley. It's about responsibility. We need to work together as a family. Whatever, Valerie, he said, eyes glued to the screen. Bradley, this is serious. We need to make changes. Your behavior affects everyone. He finally looked at me, irritation clear on his face. I'm not changing for you. Deal with it. As I walked away, I passed Carol, who had been listening. You need to stop pushing him, Valerie. You're making things worse. I'm trying to help. We can't keep pretending everything is fine. You're the one causing problems, she said coldly before turning away. The days passed and the tension in the house grew thicker. One afternoon, I found Carol in the living room, arranging a pile of shopping bags. Carol, more shopping? We've talked about this. She shrugged, not bothered. Bradley needed new clothes. He's a growing boy. That we can't afford new clothes constantly. There are more important things we need to focus on. Sean said it's fine, she replied nonchalantly. Infuriated, I cornered Sean that night after dinner. Sean, enough is enough. We need to set boundaries. He looked exhausted and annoyed. What do you want me to do, Val? They won't listen to you, and they won't listen to me either. Then we'll sink. Is that what you want? I asked, my voice trembling. Sean didn't have an answer. As I watched him retreat into silence, something broke inside me. If they wouldn't change, maybe it was time I did. Ever since our last argument, a heavy silence filled the house. That silence broke when I walked into the living room one afternoon and saw Bradley tearing open a large box. What's that? I asked, already dreading the answer. Bradley's eyes lit up. A new gaming console. Grandma bought it for me. My heart sank. How could Carol keep doing this? I turned to find her standing in the doorway, her expression smug. Carol, we cannot keep buying expensive things. We have bills to pay. Carol crossed her arms. Valerie, it's a small gift. Bradley's been having a hard time. He deserves something nice. We can't afford nice right now, Carol. You know that. Don't be such a stick in the mud, Valerie. He's just a kid. I was furious. Enough, Carol. This kind of spending is sinking us. Sean walked in just as I was about to snap. What's going on? Carol bought Bradley a new gaming console, I said, shaking with anger. Sean rubbed his forehead. Val, can we not fight over this? Let's talk about it later. There's nothing to talk about, Sean. We need to make changes now. This isn't sustainable. He sighed, looking between Carol and me. We'll figure it out. I stormed out of the room, feeling utterly defeated. They were never going to change, and I was hitting a wall every single time. The next morning, I decided to take action. I waited until Bradley left for school and Carol went out shopping. Then I sat Sean down at the kitchen table. Sean, we need to make some serious changes. This is out of control, I began, trying to keep my voice steady. Valerie, I know you're struggling, but what do you expect me to do? He asked, exasperated. You need to start supporting me. Put your foot down with Carol and Bradley. We need to budget and stick to it. I'll talk to them, he said warily, but I had heard that before. No, Sean, you need to do more than talk. You need to enforce it, I said firmly. He looked at me for a long moment. I'll try, he finally said. But try wasn't enough. The following week, nothing changed. Carol continued her shopping sprees, and Bradley kept getting what he wanted. I felt like I was sinking into quicksand. Then, one evening, I overheard Carol talking to a friend on the phone. Valerie's always nagging about money. She needs to relax. Sean will take care of everything like he always does. That was the last straw. I waited until she hung up before confronting her. Carol, enough is enough. You can't keep treating this situation lightly. We need to stop this reckless spending. Carol looked at me with contempt. Valerie, you're overstepping. Who do you think you are? This is my son's house. It's my house, too, and I have a say in how we manage it. Sean's in charge, and he'll make the decisions. Not you, she said, glaring at me. I turned to Sean, who had been standing silently in the doorway. Are you going to let her speak for you? He looked uncomfortable. Val, let's just calm down. We can talk about this. No, Sean. We've talked enough. This has to stop now. Carol smirked. See, Sean? Valerie's just causing trouble. I felt the walls closing in. Without more support from Sean, nothing would change. It was up to me to decide what my breaking point was and what I was willing to tolerate. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I made up my mind. Sean might not back me up, but I had to stand my ground. This cycle had to end, one way or another. The tension in the house reached a boiling point the next morning. Carol was in the kitchen, humming softly to herself as she brewed coffee. Bradley was shoveling cereal into his mouth, ignoring me as usual. I took a deep breath and walked over to the coffee machine. "Carol, we need to talk." She glanced at me, raising an eyebrow. "What now, Valerie?" I kept my voice steady. "This can't go on. The spending, the disrespect, we're in a financial crisis and no one is listening." "Valerie, is this really necessary? You're blowing things out of proportion," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. "I'm not," I said firmly. "Sean and I have talked, and we need to make some drastic changes." Carol scoffed. "Talked? He'll come to his senses like he always does. You can't change how we live." "Actually, I can," I replied. "I'm not moving into the new house. This has gone too far. I've had enough." The room went silent. Even Bradley looked up from his cereal. "You can't be serious," Carol said, her voice rising. "Sean, tell her she's being ridiculous." Sean stood in the doorway, looking helpless. "Val, are you sure this is what you want?" I nodded. "I've thought about it, Sean. I'm done enabling this behavior. I need a break from all of this." "You can't just leave," Bradley said, standing up. "Who's going to handle everything?" "I'm sure you'll manage," I replied, keeping my voice calm. Sean stepped forward. "Valerie, we're a family. You can't just walk out." "Watch me," I said. The determination in my voice surprised even me. That night, I packed my bags. Every creak of the suitcase zipper sounded louder in the quiet house. Sean came into the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. "Val, please reconsider. We can make things better. I've given it 4 years. Nothing's changed. I need to take care of myself now." "How can you do this to us? To me?" His voice broke, and for a moment I saw the vulnerability in his eyes that I'd fallen in love with. But it wasn't enough to hold me back this time. "I'm doing this for me, Sean. I need space, and I need peace." With my bags packed, I stood at the door. Bradley stormed past me, his face twisted with anger. "You're just a quitter," he spat. I ignored the sting of his words and walked out, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. In the new apartment, the silence was different. Peaceful, almost welcoming. As the days went by, I started to find a rhythm, a sense of self that had been lost in the chaos. Back at the old house, things began to unravel. I received a call from Sean late one evening. "Valerie, we need you. Things are falling apart here." His voice was laced with panic. "You need to handle it, Sean. I've done my part. Please, can you at least think about coming back?" "I can't, Sean. You need to face the consequences of your choices. I need to move on." As I hung up the phone, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in years, I slept soundly, knowing I had finally taken control of my life. I closed the door to my new apartment with a sense of resolve. The place was small but clean, a blank canvas ready for a fresh start. I began to unpack my life, each item a reminder of what I had left behind. Sean's calls were increasingly desperate. "Val, we can't manage without you. The bills are piling up. The house is a mess," he confessed during one of our conversations. "Sean, you need to step up. I can't keep saving you." I replied firmly. Weeks turned into months, and I settled into a new routine. I found solace in the simplicity of my new life. Carol's incessant calls were easy to ignore, each one more shrill and panic-stricken than the last. One morning, while I sipped my coffee, I received a knock on the door. Opening it, I was surprised to see Bradley standing there, looking more disheveled than I had ever seen him. "Bradley, what are you doing here?" I asked, keeping my surprise in check. I need help," he mumbled, looking at his feet. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. He shuffled in, looking around the small, tidy apartment. "This place, it's different. It's mine," I replied simply. "Now what's going on?" "Things are bad at home. Grandma's health isn't great, and Dad, he's just not handling it," Bradley said, his voice cracking. "Bradley, you know I can't go back. I needed to make a change. I know, but we're drowning. Dad's been laid off and Grandma had to sell the house. We're living in an apartment now, but it's not enough. I dropped out of school to work." I felt a pang of sympathy, but kept my expression neutral. "Bradley, that's not the answer. You need to take responsibility, but not like this." He looked at me, eyes pleading. "What should I do then? How do I fix this?" "You start from the bottom, Bradley. Get a job, finish your education, and understand what it means to be responsible. It takes time, but it's the only way." I know I treated you horribly. I was wrong. I need to make things right, but I don't know how, he confessed, tears welling up in his eyes. You took the first step by coming here. The rest is up to you. If you need guidance, I'm here. But I won't solve your problems for you. Bradley nodded, wiping his eyes. Thanks, Valerie. I'll work on it. As he left, I felt a strange sense of closure. The boy who had once been my greatest source of frustration was now seeking my guidance. It wasn't revenge I wanted, but change, and it seemed like it was finally starting to happen. Later that evening, I picked up my phone and dialed Sean. Hey, we need to talk. Val, I miss you. We need you. I need you. His voice was barely above a whisper. I can't come back, Sean, but I wanted to check in. How's Bradley? He's trying. He's working and planning to go back to school. I think your leaving was a wake-up call for all of us. I'm glad to hear that, but Sean, you need to learn to manage without me. I know, I'm learning, slowly, but I am. As I hung up, I felt a sense of accomplishment. My departure had forced change, real change. It wasn't instant, but it was happening. A small smile crept onto my face. The journey wasn't over, but for the first time I felt like I had made a real difference. As weeks turned into months, I heard less from Sean and more about their struggles through mutual friends. It seemed reality had finally caught up with them. One evening, I got a call from an old friend who had run into Sean at the grocery store. Valerie, I saw Sean today. He looked terrible, asked if you knew he lost his job, she said. The news hit me, but I stayed calm. Thanks for letting me know. How's Bradley? Doing his best. From what Sean said, working part-time and trying to finish school, she replied. Good to hear, I said, trying to mask my concern. The next day I got a call from Sean himself. His voice was strained. Valerie, things have gotten worse. I don't know what to do. What happened, Sean? I got laid off, Val. We can't keep up with the expenses. Carol's health is declining and Bradley's trying, but it's not enough, he said, defeat ringing in his tone. This was never supposed to happen, he continued. I thought we could handle this. Sean, you have to take control. Talk to your mother. Set boundaries. It's the only way. But she won't listen to me. She never did. She has to now, or you'll all suffer the consequences, I replied firmly. I'll try, he said, though he didn't sound convinced. Time passed and the storm continued to rage at their end. One evening I decided to take a walk. Fresh air always cleared my mind. As I passed by my old neighborhood, I saw Bradley working at the local car wash. He looked worn out but focused. Hey, Bradley, I called out. He looked up, surprised but pleased to see me. Valerie, hey. How's it going? I asked, genuinely curious. It's tough, he admitted, but I'm managing, trying to save up and finish high school. I'm proud of you for sticking it out, I said. Thank you, he replied, gratitude in his eyes. I realized I took a lot for granted. I should have listened to you sooner. It's never too late to change, I said. Keep working hard and things will get better. He nodded, determination etched on his face. I will. Walking back, I felt a strange mixture of emotions. I cared for them, but I also knew they needed this struggle to truly understand the value of responsibility. A few nights later, I received another call from Sean. This time, his tone was desperate. Val, Carol's health is really bad. We had to sell the house and move into a small apartment. It's all falling apart. I'm sorry to hear that, Sean. You two made choices that led to this, I said, trying to stay firm but compassionate. Can you help, Val? Please. I don't know what else to do, he pleaded. You need to face this, Sean. Learn from it. I see that now. I see how much we relied on you, but it's too late, he said softly. You can still turn things around. Focus on Bradley and make things right with him. I will. Thank you, Val. As we ended the call, I realized their downfall was the wake-up call they needed. It was painful to see them struggle, but necessary for true change. They had to experience the consequences of their actions to learn and grow. Despite the chaos, I felt a sense of hope. Perhaps this was the beginning of a new chapter for all of us, one filled with hard-earned lessons and the promise of a better future. I was in the middle of organizing my apartment when my phone rang. I almost didn't answer it, but the name on the screen caught my eye. Sean. Valerie, I hate to ask, but I really need your help, he said, voice strained. What happened now? I asked, bracing myself. We're being evicted. I don't know where else to turn. He admitted. I took a deep breath. Sean, you ignored my warnings for years. Why do you expect me to help now? Please, Val, I've realized how much you did for us. We can't manage without you. You chose to ignore me, Sean. You need to face the consequences. But what about Bradley? He needs stability, he pleaded. I closed my eyes, considering. Bradley is trying to make things right, but you have to lead by example, Sean. I'll do anything. Just help us get back on our feet, he said, desperation clear in his voice. I'll think about it, but understand this, Sean. I won't be your crutch anymore. We hung up, and I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to rush in and fix everything, but I knew that wouldn't help them in the long run. A week later, I got another call from Sean. Valerie, we've found a small place we can afford, but I need a loan for the deposit. Can you help? Sean, I'll lend you the money, but this is the last time. You have to make a plan and stick to it. I promise, Val. This time will be different. We arranged to meet at a cafe to finalize the loan. As I arrived, I saw Sean sitting at a corner table, looking more worn than I'd ever seen him. Thank you for coming, he said as I sat down. I'm doing this for Bradley, I replied. Sean nodded. I understand. We'll pay you back, I swear. I handed him the check. Make sure you do, and start taking responsibility. Bradley needs you to be strong. I know, I will. Thank you, Val, he said sincerely. As I left the cafe, I hoped this would be the turning point for them. Days passed, and I focused on my own life. One afternoon, I received a call from Bradley. Valerie, can we meet? I have something to show you. Curious, I agreed. We met at a small park. Bradley looked healthier, more focused. Look, he said, showing me a report card. I passed all my classes. I'm graduating next month. Bradley, that's wonderful. I'm so proud of you, I said, genuinely happy. Thanks, Valerie. I couldn't have done it without your guidance. You did the hard work, Bradley. Keep it up. As we sat and talked, I realized how much he had grown. He was maturing into a responsible young man. How's Sean? I asked. He's trying. He's working 2 jobs now and managing the finances better. Good to hear. Stay on track, both of you. We will, Valerie. We've learned a lot from this, he said. Walking back to my apartment, I felt a sense of closure. They were finally learning from their mistakes, and I had played my part. A few weeks later, I got another call from Sean. Val, I wanted you to know we've paid the first month's rent on time. Things are looking up. I'm glad to hear that, Sean. Keep it up. I will. Thank you for everything. As the call ended, I felt a sense of peace. My decision to leave had been the catalyst for real change. While they still had a long way to go, they were finally on the right path. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe easy, knowing I had made the right choices for myself and, indirectly, for them as well. A few months passed, and life carried on without much contact from Sean and Bradley. One day, while returning from the grocery store, my phone buzzed with a message from Bradley. Valerie, can you meet me at the park? Need to talk. I agreed, curious and maybe a little concerned. When I arrived, I found Bradley sitting alone on a bench, a somber look on his face. What's going on? I asked, taking a seat beside him. It's Grandma. She's not doing well. We had to sell her part of the house to pay for medical bills, he confessed, eyes downcast. I'm sorry to hear that, Bradley, I said sincerely. It's been really tough. Dad's trying, but he's stretched so thin. We're just surviving day by day. I placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. You've come a long way, Bradley. Don't lose hope. I know. It's just hard seeing everything fall apart. His voice broke. You've got to stay strong for yourself and for your dad. Thanks, Valerie. It means a lot to hear you say that. I'm always here if you need to talk, I reassured him. On my way home, I thought about Carol. She had never shown me kindness, but seeing her suffer now didn't bring me joy either. This was karma playing out in real life, teaching its harsh lessons. A week later, Sean called me. His voice was weary. Val, it's Carol. She's bedridden now, and we have to move her to a care facility. We can't handle her medical needs. I'm sorry to hear that, I replied, trying to balance empathy with my own emotional distance. Any advice on what we can do? Look into community resources. There are programs that can help you manage financially and medically. I will. Thanks, Val. I appreciate it, he said, his voice sincere. A month later, as I was strolling through town, I ran into an old neighbor who told me Carol had moved into a small apartment near the care facility. The news left me feeling a strange mix of vindication and pity. One rainy afternoon, I stopped by the local diner for a coffee. As I entered, I saw Bradley cleaning tables. He looked up and smiled when he saw me. Valerie, hey. Hey, Bradley. How's it going? Better. Dad got a more stable job, and I'm working here part-time while finishing high school. I'm glad to hear that. Keep working hard. I will. Thanks for everything, Val, he said earnestly. As I left the diner, I bumped into Sean. He looked older, more worn, but there was a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Valerie, he said, his tone softer than I remembered. Sean, I replied, keeping my emotions in check. I wanted to thank you. Your leaving made us wake up. We're still struggling, but at least we're trying now. I'm glad to hear that. You know, Sean, it's never too late to change. He nodded. We're learning that the hard way. As we stood there, the rain pouring around us, I felt the closure I had longed for finally settling in. The Turner family had learned their lessons through the trials they'd faced, and while it had been a difficult journey, it was clear they were on a path to redemption. Take care, Sean, I said, turning to leave. You too, Val, he replied, his voice carrying a sense of genuine appreciation. Walking away, I felt lighter. The drama and chaos that once filled my life had dissipated, leaving room for new beginnings. Bradley's growth, Sean's newfound responsibility, and even Carol's change of circumstances were all part of the greater tapestry of life's lessons learned. For the first time in a long while, I felt at peace, knowing my decisions had steered not just me, but all of us towards a better future.
One day, I learned the secret my husband had been keeping from me. I was right. My premonition had come true, and I was struck by an incredible feeling. Even though there were cracks in our marriage, it didn't mean that I didn't have feelings for my husband. What can I do now while I'm not feeling well? It's hard. I want to run away. While these feelings were filling me up, I may have already made up my mind. This is not something I can ask others to do. I had to act on my own. I was determined, so I pushed myself to the limit and headed for a place, not knowing that the ultimate life-altering choice awaited me. My name is Jane Stewart, 29 years old. I'm currently a housewife, busy with the daily chores of the house. I met my husband Trevor 3 years ago. This was when I was still an office worker. I met him through work, and we were the same age. We started seeing each other regularly, and after about a year and a half of dating, we became husband and wife. When we got married, I decided to become a full-time housewife, following my husband's wish. I wasn't particularly attached to my job, so we agreed that I would stay at home. We started our married life in a house that my father built in my name. But at the time, I never expected it. I never thought that this marriage would end like that. We were so happy during the first 6 months. I worked hard every day to keep the house clean for my beloved husband. But then, I started to feel something strange. At first, it was really a trivial thing. My husband, who had never worked late before, didn't come home until after 9 p.m. without a single notice. Normally, when he has to work overtime, he would send a message saying that he would be late. But on this particular day, for some reason, he didn't contact me at all. I sent a few messages and made a few phone calls, but there was no response. I waited restlessly in the living room until my husband finally came home after 11 p.m. I quickly got up and headed for the front door. When I called out his name, he was startled for a moment.
Jane, why are you still up?
I hadn't heard from you and I was worried. What were you doing out this late at night?
What's that supposed to mean? Of course I was working overtime.
And you didn't call me at all until this hour?
Oh, I've been especially busy today. I'm sure there will be more days like this from now on.
My husband pushed me away and said he was tired and wanted to take a bath and go to bed, and headed to the bathroom. His attitude was so casual that I felt foolish for worrying about him. What the hell was that attitude? Do you have any idea how worried I was? He could have at least said sorry for not being able to contact me. I suppressed my rising irritation and headed for the bedroom. That day, I wrapped myself up in my comforter and forced myself to sleep. Our marriage changed forever after that day. My husband started working overtime almost every day, and he also started working on his days off. I thought it was strange and tried to discuss it with him, but he insisted that it was because he was working overtime. Then, I realized something. I noticed that my husband, who was supposed to be working overtime, smelled like he had taken a shower. There was only one reason why he was late coming home. One evening, Trevor came home after midnight, so I began. "Hey, Trevor, what are you really doing, coming home this late?"
I don't know what you're talking about, and don't make me repeat myself. I've been telling you, I'm just working overtime.
That's a lot of overtime. Before we were married, you hardly ever worked overtime.
It can't be helped. It's a busy time now.
But working on your days off seems a little too much. Besides, you are supposed to be at work, but your suit smells so good.
Smells good?
Like after a shower. Why do you smell like that? When I questioned him about it, his eyes widened and he fell silent. But he quickly regains his composure and tells me with no hesitation.
It's just your imagination. If it were to smell good, it's probably because of the company.
It's the company's scent?
I'm working overtime, so of course there are other employees around. And since I'm in the same space as the female employees, it's possible that their smell transferred onto me.
I don't think it's possible for the smell to be transferred unless they are in close proximity.
Shut up! You've been nagging me so much these days. And you are always complaining. Who do you think helps you live your life?
How could he backtrack after all this? I'm honestly disappointed in his inability to have a proper discussion. Not so long ago, we used to be able to have a proper discussion about our differences. He's obviously angry because he has something to hide. But in order to get him to admit he was cheating on me, I had to have proof. From that day on, I decided to look for evidence of the affair. Then, a few days later, I saw Trevor's phone on the living room table. In any case, I needed a passcode to open it. As I looked at the phone with trepidation, he received a message notification. It was from someone named Rachel. "I had a great time yesterday. I can't wait to see you again. I'm really looking forward to our upcoming anniversary trip. We've been dating for half a year now, right? When are you and your wife getting divorced? I can't wait to marry you, Trevor." The text was written as if they were lovers, and my hands trembled as I held the phone in my hand. I could feel my breathing gradually getting rougher and rougher. I knew it, just as I thought. Trevor was having an affair. For 6 months now. I couldn't believe it. He cheated on me less than a year after we got married. He had been lying about working late while he was meeting another woman. I was nauseous, probably because I hadn't been feeling well recently and hadn't been eating well. My body was more honest than I thought. After a while, my husband came out of the bath, so I asked him, "Trevor, who is Rachel?" My husband responded with a simple "what?" and glared at me. I guess he saw the phone in my hand and knew what I was talking about. He forcibly took the phone from me and shouted at me,
"Hey, don't peek into people's phones without permission. Don't you have any sense of privacy?"
"How can you say that after cheating on me?"
"I'm not having an affair. Do you have any proof?"
"Proof?" The proof is right there. Then my husband deleted the message notification on his screen and put on a triumphant look on his face. Then he asked me where the proof was again. I can't show him the message again because I can't unlock his phone. The evidence I had obtained was now lost in front of my eyes. As I bit my lower lip in frustration, my husband simply said to me,
"If you suspect me of cheating, you'd better come up with evidence. It's libel, isn't it?"
"What? What are you talking about? How insensitive can you be?"
"You're the one who started saying I was cheating on you. I really don't feel like coming back to this house to be accused of cheating, which I didn't do."
"I can't believe it. Whose fault do you think this is?"
"If you say any more baseless things, I'm divorcing you, okay? I didn't cheat on you, so you have no right to demand alimony from me. I feel sorry for you, though."
My husband is grinning and smiling wickedly, observing my reaction. At that moment, the negative feelings I had been trying so hard to suppress had bursted inside of me. Making fun of me like that. I can't keep quiet any longer. Just because I'm a housewife doesn't mean I can't do anything. I'm going to do everything I can do to get back at him. A few days later, I headed to the detective agency I had researched during the daytime on a weekend, so that my husband would not find out. With a queasy feeling in my stomach, I requested an investigation into my husband's infidelity. When I explained the situation, the person in charge at the agency immediately agreed to the request.
"Understood. Let's start the investigation right away."
"Thank you."
"But there is one problem."
"A problem?" The detective nodded a little gloomily and then looked at me straight in the eye.
"We can start investigating your husband right away. But you're a housewife, aren't you, Mrs. Stewart?"
"Yes. Is that a problem?"
"No. The request itself can be done, but it will cost some amount of money. Many full-time housewives may be able to request an affair investigation, but have trouble paying."
"Oh, I see."
"Even if you are able to divorce your husband, you may have trouble making ends meet afterwards. Are you prepared for that?"
"Yes, I've already decided. I won't let him do what he wants anymore." The person in charge nodded emphatically in response to my words. Thus, the request for an affair investigation was established. After leaving the detective agency, I headed to the hospital to find out the cause of the health problems I had been enduring. After obtaining a series of tests, an endoscopy revealed a startling diagnosis.
"Mrs. Stewart, you have a stomach ulcer and are bleeding from the side. Why have you let it go this far?"
"What? Bleeding?"
"You are in pretty bad shape. I'm sure it's just fatigue and stress, but you have been holding it in too long."
"Well, I've been a little busy."
"I'm afraid you will have to stay with us for about 2 weeks. Please let your family know."
I can't wrap my head around a diagnosis I didn't expect. But the fact that I will be in the hospital means that I won't see my husband for a while. It's true that he rarely comes home, but that doesn't mean we don't see each other at all. And by being in the hospital, I won't see him completely for 2 weeks. That was the best stress reliever for me right now. I leave the hospital once during my lunch break to call my husband, but he never returned my calls, and no matter how many times I tried to reach him, there was no response. I had no choice but to leave a message and go back to the hospital. After completing the admission procedures, I was shown to my room. At the end of the day, I tried calling again, but there was still no answer. Of course, I didn't have a change of clothes, so I had to buy some at the hospital store.
"I would like to explain your symptoms to your family."
That's what the doctor told me. But as long as I couldn't reach him, There was nothing I could do. It was more than 10 days after my hospitalization when my husband finally contacted me.
I'm on my way to the hospital.
That was the only message I received, and I had my doubts. Why now, when I will be discharged soon? I had already told him I had bought everything I needed at the store, so there was no need for him to come all the way here. While I was waiting for my husband, I got a call from the detective agency. Sure enough, Trevor was guilty of cheating. My husband was having an affair with a co-worker. They said they had gathered enough photographic evidence and that it would be advantageous for my divorce. I ended the call by informing them of my current condition and telling them that I would be on my way as soon as I was discharged from the hospital. A few hours later, my husband appeared in my hospital room with a confident expression on his face. As soon as he greeted me with a long time no see, he began to speak with great enthusiasm.
I have something important to tell you today.
Something important?
Even if you get out of the hospital, you won't have a home to go back to.
What? What are you talking about?
I'm divorcing you and change the house title to me so you can get lost.
My husband said that with a smirk on his face. How can one say get lost to his wife, even as a joke? Not so long ago, I would have been hurt by these words and would have been in tears. But now, I no longer have any feelings for my husband. I smiled and told him, "You divorced me? Thank you so much."
What? Thank you?
Yeah, thank you for going through the hassle of the divorce process. Actually, I was just about to request a divorce myself.
What? Why?
I told you. I still think you are cheating on me. I can't live with these feelings.
Oh, so that's what this is about. So it's a consensual divorce then?
Yes, of course.
Okay then. You can go back to your parents when you get out of the hospital.
After saying that, my husband left the hospital room humming a tune. I couldn't stop laughing at the sight of him. He's so stupid. He doesn't know anything. Do you think I'm going to keep quiet? I'm going to make sure I get my revenge. A few days later, as soon as I was discharged from the hospital, I headed to the detective agency. I received proof of the affair and headed to the Superior Court on the same day. There, I confirmed our divorce. With these documents in hand, I went to my parents' house. My parents were surprised when I came home without warning. But when I revealed my husband's wrongdoings, my father's face turned red and he exclaimed,
Cheating on you? How can he? And that house was built for you, Jane.
I know, Dad. I looked into it myself. I don't know how you can change the owner of the house without permission.
That's impossible. How the hell did he?
If the owner is not present, you need a power of attorney from the registered owner. And I think Trevor wrote it without permission.
A POA? Isn't that a crime?
Of course. I've looked into that too. I went to a lawyer's office with the evidence in hand. I explained the situation, and they immediately proceeded to file a claim for compensation. Next, I contacted my in-laws and took our parents to the house where we used to spend our married life. When I entered the house with our parents, I found Trevor and his affair partner flirting in the living room.
What the hell? Why are you here? And our parents too.
I came here today to tell you something important.
Something important? Get the hell out of here. This is my house now.
My house? Don't make me laugh. This is a house my father built for me.
Shut up. The owner has already been changed. If you don't leave, I will call the police.
Why don't you call them? I think you're the one that's going to be in trouble.
What the?
Trevor's eye changed color and stopped right up to me. As soon as he was right in front of me, I confronted him with the photo evidence I got from the agency. As soon as Trevor saw it, he started shaking and his face turned blue.
Why do you have that?
I hired the detective to get a favorable divorce.
Wait a minute. Favorable? You're not trying to get alimony, are you?
Of course I am. Besides, you changed the name on the house and filed for divorce without permission, forging the registered owner's POA and forging the divorce papers are both crimes of document forgery and signature forgery. So basically, you're a criminal.
What?
Trevor probably didn't know it would be this big a deal. The same goes for the woman, who is also pale from hearing the exchange.
Please pretend it never happened.
My ex-husband begs for himself before he apologizes. I clearly told my pathetic ex-husband, pretend it never happened? Do you think you can get away with what you did? How can I forgive a scumbag who cheated on his wife and even committed a crime?
Jane, please.
Shut up. You almost destroyed my body. And you betrayed not only me, but our parents as well. Get lost and go to hell. Go crawl in the bowels of hell with that woman right there. Trevor is screaming like he had gone mad, and my father and father-in-law take him outside. His affair partner was also kicked out, leaving them with nowhere to go. I then requested a lump sum of alimony through my lawyer. The woman was fired from her job when the company found out about the affair, and she got into debt for the alimony payments. Trevor was convicted of forgery and was sentenced to 6 months in prison. Of course, there was no way he could live the same life after prison. After that, he will have to pay alimony and look for a job. But that's his punishment. I can only say he got what he deserved. I, on the other hand, live with my father and mother in the house we got back. The house is too big for one person to live in, so the life I have now is just fine. My marriage has failed, but I still have a long way to go in my life. From now on, I won't make better choices for my happiness.
I've been running a cafe with my husband. One day, my husband called me to the cafe after closing. Sitting next to him was a 20-year-old college student part-timer.
I got her pregnant. I want to take responsibility, so please, divorce me.
The college part-timer had a smug expression as my husband lowered his head and said those words. Pregnant? I was speechless, and the part-timer laughed and said, You're just an old hag who can't get pregnant anymore. Get out of this shop. We'll manage this shop as a couple from now on.
She's right, so please divorce me.
Then I sighed and said, All right, we can divorce, but we'll close the shop.
Huh? Close the shop? No, that's troublesome.
It's impossible, because that girl... After this, the foolish couple will experience hell. My name is Hazel Smith, a 38-year-old housewife. I've always dreamed of becoming a pastry chef. To fulfill that dream, I attended a vocational school while working part-time, learning pastry making and saving money for the shop's operating funds. After graduating from vocational school, I honed my skills at a French bakery and studied business management. During that time, I met Aaron at a business seminar, and he would later become my husband.
I aspire to become a barista and open a cafe in the future.
With similar dreams, Aaron and I hit it off, leading to conversations and eventually a relationship. After 2 years of dating, Aaron proposed to me.
Hazel, will you marry me and let's fulfill our dreams?
Huh?
Why don't we run a cafe with your cakes and my coffee? I'm sure it'll work out.
Yes, Aaron, let's do our best together. And so we were blessed by our families and got married. We actually started preparing to open the cafe by scouting for a location. But then, a problem arose. Huh? Aaron, you don't have any savings?
I used it all for the tuition fees to study abroad and become a barista.
So, Aaron didn't have any startup capital. I thought we'd each contribute half, so I was taken aback. But since we'd already signed the lease, we couldn't just stop. In the end, I had to cover all the startup costs and become the cafe's owner. I was amazed and worried that Aaron, who said he wanted to run the shop, had no savings. But we were already married, and his good nature was important for the cafe's success. So I convinced myself to start the cafe. Primarily, I handled the behind-the-scenes work like baking cakes and cooking, while Aaron manages customer service and making drinks as the manager. At the same time, Aaron and I started living together. There's a lot of prep and accounting work to do after the shop closes, so I'm busy all day. But since Aaron only works when he's at the cafe, he has plenty of free time. Despite this, he hardly does any housework. Hey, Aaron, you know I'm busy, right? Can't you at least vacuum or something? I said that to Aaron, who was lounging after work. Then Aaron immediately frowned.
Ugh, that's a hassle. I don't want to do that.
What are you saying? If nobody does it, the house will get messy, right? I'm busy, so help with the housework.
If you're going to complain so much, then just outsource the housework, you know? You could even hire a housekeeper or something.
I felt dizzy at Aaron's casual suggestion like it was nothing. You understand, we're still just starting the cafe and don't have the luxury, right? We need to take care of things ourselves, at least our own affairs.
If you're going to complain so much, then you can do the housework until you're satisfied, you know? It's not a big deal to me if the room is dirty or if we argue every day, you know?
In this manner, Aaron was simply uncooperative with housework. Ultimately, amidst my busy days, I ended up bearing the bulk of the chores. As for the cafe, initially, foot traffic was sparse, but gradually, customers began to visit after it was featured on a famous blog saying the cakes were incredibly delicious. My cakes received great reviews, and I even had people saying, I've become a loyal fan. On the other hand, Aaron actually had a handsome face. Moreover, with his friendly customer service, our cafe became known as a stylish cafe with delicious cakes and a handsome manager. 3 years into running the cafe, it had become quite popular. As for our private lives, actually there was one concern. That was our difficulty in conceiving a child. I was over 30 and starting to feel the desire for children. It seemed Aaron felt the same way as he started talking more about having kids. But despite our efforts, there was no sign of pregnancy.
If you're not getting pregnant, maybe the problem is with you?
My husband started saying such discontented things. I've been told that there's no problem with me getting pregnant. Why don't you go to the clinic and get tested?
There shouldn't be any problem with me. It's all your fault. I wanted kids, you know?
Him blaming me solely for our inability to have children was tough. And so, our relationship as a couple gradually cooled off. Meanwhile, the cafe reached its 5th anniversary. We received congratulations from regular customers, and outwardly we continued to run the shop as a happy couple. Around that time, the university student who had been working for us part-time for years decided to leave the job to pursue a career, so we had to find a new part-timer. As our cafe was stylish and popular, we quickly had applicants when we posted the job opening. Ashley Murphy, 19 years old, a university student. This cafe has always been my dream. Ashley, who applied for the part-time job, was a petite, adorable, and sociable girl.
She has experience in customer service and seems to be an influencer with many followers on social media, right? It could lead to more customers. Shouldn't we hire her?
Upon Aaron's suggestion, I decided to hire Ashley. Little did I know that this decision would lead to a major event later on. With Ashley on board, the cafe became even livelier. Ashley ran a social media account named Ash and had a large following. Her followers flocked to the cafe and she would post about it on social media, attracting even more new customers. I hired a cooking assistant and focused on boosting business and managing while honing my skills. About 6 months after Ashley started working, Aaron started coming home later and later. He would say he was studying outside to improve his skills as a barista, but there were days when he would come home smelling of women's perfume. I began to grow suspicious of him. During that time, it became routine for me to leave the cafe in the evening, go to the rented kitchen, and prepare cakes. I always left the closing tasks to Aaron and went straight home, but one day I realized I had forgotten something at the shop. After closing, as I tried to open the backyard door from the employee entrance, I heard voices from inside.
Ron, thanks for your hard work today.
Thanks to you, Ashley, we had a lot of customers again today.
Is Aaron and the part-timer Ashley inside? And Ashley calls my husband Ron? They seem quite close. I started recording the conversation on my phone while listening outside the door.
Hey, Ron, when are you going to marry me?
Well, there are various things I need to consider.
Hey, hurry up and break up with that ugly woman and marry me instead. After all, I'm younger and cuter, right? Besides, I want to run this cafe with you, Ron. Let's get rid of that ugly woman quickly.
Don't say that. But of course, Ashley is cuter, right?
From inside, there were strange and disgusting sounds coming. I was furious at that moment. I've been suspecting since he's been coming home late recently, but I never imagined he was cheating with a college student part-time worker. And saying this to me, I'll never forgive him. As I listened with trembling ears, Ashley suddenly said,
If that ugly woman refuses, I will use the power of social media to crush this shop. Surely, even she would dislike that, right?
Oh, that's scary. But if we threaten her like that, she might also hand over the shop.
Right? I'm clever. Now, Ron, take care of me today, too.
Then the two of them started getting intimate in the backyard. I quietly ended the recording and left the scene. While secretly advancing my plan, I pretended to know nothing and continued to run the shop with Aaron. 2 months later, Aaron told me he has something to discuss and called me to the cafe after closing. Ashley was sitting next to my husband, grinning. Aaron, what's this talk about? Why is your part-time girlfriend sitting next to you? When I asked calmly, Ashley smirked nervously beside Aaron.
Sorry, Hazel. I got her pregnant. I want to take responsibility, so please divorce me.
With Aaron lowering his head and saying that, Ashley had a smug expression on her face. Pregnant? I was speechless, and Ashley laughed as she said,
Aaron chose me over you, the old hag who couldn't get pregnant forever. You should leave this shop at once. We'll manage it as a couple from now on.
She's right. It was your fault that we couldn't have children after all. I want to live happily with Ashley and our child. So please, divorce me soon.
Upon hearing this, I sighed and said, Fine. But if we divorce, we'll close the shop.
Huh? Close the shop? No, that's not an option.
There's no other option, because if I refuse, that woman plans to use social media to ruin the shop, right? I absolutely don't want to hand over this shop to you two, but if I do, she'll destroy it. So closing it is the only option. As I said this, Aaron and Ashley looked shocked. Then I played the recording I made that day. They turned paler and paler.
What did you just say?
How dare you eavesdrop? It's distasteful.
What do you have to say? Anyway, as the owner of this cafe, I have the right to close it. Rather than handing it over to you two, I'd rather shut it down myself. With a calm expression, I continued.
Are you a demon? We're about to have a child. If you do that, we'll lose our source of income.
I don't care about that. Besides, you talk about having a child, but is it really yours? My bombshell statement left Aaron speechless.
Huh? What are you talking about? I don't understand.
Even with all that, are you still confident that Ashley's child is yours? At that moment, I scattered several photos on the table. They showed Ashley entering a hotel with a man, and not just one. She had been dating multiple different men.
What is this?
Aaron looked at the photos in astonishment. Meanwhile, Ashley beside him had turned pale. I listened to your conversation and then had Ashley investigated. I found out she had been involved with more than 5 men in these past 2 months. It seems like everyone is a follower on social media, right, Ashley? With a smirk, I said that, and Ashley pursed her lips and went to Aaron.
This is a lie. This is your fabrication, you old hag. Aaron, don't believe her.
But, hey, Ashley, isn't this Kay, the influencer guy? I can't believe this is fabricated. Explain yourself properly.
That's why I told you it's different.
Ashley shouted in a high-pitched voice, beginning to scratch her head. It was a far cry from the cute influencer she portrayed.
Hey, old hag, what gives you the right to investigate me? There are things you can do and things you can't do.
I can say the same thing to you.
Your sanctimonious act really pisses me off. Just so you know, with the power of my social media, I can ruin you in an instant. Remember that, you hag.
Indeed, the power of social media is quite something. I already have 20,000 viewers.
Huh?
I smiled and showed my phone screen to Ashley. These words were flashing there. The manager's husband has been stolen by a part-time worker and influencer. I'm broadcasting the scene of infidelity live.
Huh? Wait, what's this?
I've been broadcasting today's discussion in real time on my Instagram from the beginning. All your relationships and dirty words have been seen by 20,000 viewers.
No!
Meanwhile, the screen was filled with intense comments. Ash acts cute, but her true colors are like this? Gross. Surprised that Ash was involved with the influencer Kay. Isn't it unthinkable for the manager to get involved with a 20-year-old part-timer? Watching this, Ashley started trembling violently, screaming, and ran out of the store. Left behind were Aaron, dumbfounded, and me. After cutting the broadcast, I said to Aaron, Ashley left. Shouldn't you go after her?
No way.
Aaron suddenly stood up and slammed his hands on the table.
I was drawn to a young woman, but I was deceived. I didn't think Ashley would be such a deceptive woman.
So what?
Please, Hazel, it's just you and me. Let's start over. Let's run this cafe together again. I love you, Hazel.
No way, idiot.
Huh?
I caught Aaron off, surprised. You think I'd start this cafe with you again? Don't be ridiculous. I'm closing it down. You and I are getting divorced. And I'm demanding plenty of compensation, so be prepared.
That's...
Disheartened, Aaron was left behind as I walked away from the scene. After that, Aaron and I got divorced. The $30,000 for the infidelity was quickly paid, and I was able to win a significant portion of the property division. I also demanded alimony from Ashley. Fortunately, I received the payment. After the incident, Ashley's true nature became known nationwide and her social media was ablaze. She had to quit college and delete her social media accounts. Apparently, she gave birth later on, but it seems the child wasn't Aaron's and they broke up. She was even ostracized by her parents and had to raise her child alone from then on. Ashley became infamous in a bad way. Consequently, she couldn't work in customer service and is now desperately working in a high-rise office job to support her child. As for Aaron, since the cafe closed down, he became unemployed. He also became famous as the cheating husband who got involved with a part-timer college girl, so he couldn't find work as a barista. He now lives in a shabby apartment and works part-time. So it seems that after that, he underwent testing and apparently found out that he can't conceive a child. He tried to reconcile again, but I mercilessly blocked his calls. The fall from grace from being the handsome manager of a popular cafe must have been tough for him. But I showed no mercy. As for me, I closed down the cafe and used the money I saved along with the compensation to start a new cake shop. Regulars from the cafe days also started coming by, and within a year it became quite popular. Moving forward, I want to continue working hard while actively pursuing my own happiness. Today marks our 3rd wedding anniversary. But this year, my husband Ken isn't by my side. That's because he's been on a solo work assignment for the past 6 months. Thinking, if he's too busy to come back, I'll surprise him by visiting, I dressed up and headed to where he was stationed. But what I saw was my husband entering an apartment with a woman I didn't recognize. I couldn't believe it. Was he really the kind of person who could cheat in such a situation? Well, I'll go ahead with my own plans too then. That's how I began plotting my revenge against my husband. My name is Leah Charles, 29 years old. I'm a housewife, managing our home life while working at a company. Ken and I have been married for over 2 years now. Counting the time we dated, we've been together for about 5 years. I met him through a mutual acquaintance during my first year as a working professional. A college friend of mine worked at his company, and I happened to bump into them at a pub. I was alone, and they were having a get-together with his coworkers. My friend noticed me and invited me to join their group. That's how Ken and I exchanged contact information and started messaging each other. At that time, I was overwhelmed with work and couldn't even think about dating anyone. But he felt the same, and whenever we had free time, we'd meet up at a pub to vent our frustrations. Hey, listen, Ken. Today, my boss yelled at me over something so unfair.
I totally get it. You know, getting blamed even though you didn't do anything?
Exactly. It's so annoying when they expect you to know things you've never been told about.
Right? Well, let's just drink it off for today.
Sure. I'm off work tomorrow, so let's bar hop tonight. We had a relationship like best friends or siblings. His presence gradually became a significant part of my life. 2 years after we met, while we were drinking at our usual pub and sobering up on a park bench, he suddenly said,
I think I'm in love with you, Leah.
I was taken aback by his unexpected confession. Even though it was winter, I felt incredibly warm. He felt the same. His face, lit by the moonlight, was red, and it wasn't just because of the alcohol. He continued,
Leah, will you go out with me?
What? Me, really?
Yeah, I want to be with you. We can talk about anything like best friends and care for each other. I think only we can build that kind of relationship.
Oh, Ken. And that's how our relationship began. It felt more like best friends than lovers, but I was still very happy. And now, just in 6 months, we were about to celebrate our 3rd wedding anniversary. The past 2 anniversaries, we reserved a restaurant for dinner and had cake when we got home. This year, I wanted to do the same, or maybe try something different. Even though the anniversary was still 6 months away, I couldn't stop thinking about it. One day, I got home early and was preparing dinner while waiting for Ken. About an hour later, he came home. I was frying something and couldn't leave the kitchen, so I just called out, "Welcome back," from there. But there was no response from him. I definitely heard the door open, and he usually calls out, "I'm home," first. Wondering, I turned off the stove and went to the entrance. There, I saw Ken with a troubled look on his face. What's wrong, honey? Are you feeling sick?
No, it's not that.
Then what's up? You seem really down.
Actually, I was told something at work today.
I thought maybe something went wrong at his job and asked lightly, "What did they tell you?" Ken, looking somber, quietly said,
I've been assigned to work alone in Houston starting next month.
What?
A coworker who was supposed to go had to quit because of family issues, so they're sending me instead.
No way. A solo assignment? Why so sudden? And Houston is way too far.
I'm really sorry, Leah. It's for a promotion and I couldn't say no.
That's tough. He said it was hard to refuse on the spot, especially since the assignment was only for 6 months. I understood that a promotion was important, but is it normal to decide on a solo assignment without even discussing it with your spouse? I tried talking to him about it several times, but the outcome was always the same. I had my own job, so I couldn't just follow him to Houston. Reluctantly, I accepted the idea of living apart for 6 months.
When I get back, let's celebrate our anniversary.
With that promise, his solo assignment began. 2 months later, I was initially lonely, but gradually got used to living without him. We made it a daily routine to call each other every night and share our day's events. That day, as usual, I called him at 9 p.m. But for some reason, he didn't answer. He usually picks up after a few rings. Worried that something might have happened, I texted him, but there was no reply. Anxiously, I kept calling. Finally, on the 6th try, he answered.
Hey, Leah, what's up?
What do you mean, what's up? I was worried about you.
Oh, sorry about that. I was just working late.
I thought your company didn't have much overtime?
Oh, well, I've gotten used to things, so I've been staying late voluntarily. I don't want my performance to drop, even if it's just for 6 months.
Wow, you're working hard.
So, I'm sorry, but I might not be able to call as often from now on. I just want to go straight to bed after work.
I was taken aback by his sudden change. Was I the only one feeling lonely? Even though I knew he was busy, I opened up about my feelings. Sorry, Ken. I know you're busy, but I'd like to talk, even if it's just for a bit each day.
I don't think I can promise you that.
Please, I'll be patient when you really can't.
Alright. I'm beat today, so I'm gonna hang up now. Bye.
Oh, wait, Ken, Before I could finish, the call was abruptly cut off. The disconnected tone echoed emptily in my ear. What's gotten into him all of a sudden? Work must be tough, but we promised to call each other every day before he left, even if just for a while. His attitude seemed so uninterested. Is talking to me really that much of a burden? His indifferent responses made me wonder if I was at fault. Loneliness only deepens when you can't see or even talk to each other. Time flew by, and it had been 5 months since Ken went to Houston. Our wedding anniversary was fast approaching. However, our relationship had deteriorated to the point where we could hardly be considered a couple. We barely talked on the phone, let alone exchanged messages. Even when I replied immediately, his responses took days. I just want to hear your voice over the phone, even if it's just for a little while. Despite my requests, he insisted he was too busy. The atmosphere wasn't right to bring up our anniversary. Our conversations remained superficial. A few days before our anniversary, I casually messaged him. Can't you come home this weekend? If he remembered our anniversary, he would surely come home. Though we could have celebrated after his assignment ended, I desperately wanted to see him. Then he actually called me, filling me with anticipation because it had been a while since he made a call. Hello, Ken? It's about the message I sent earlier.
Sorry, but I can't.
What?
I keep telling you I'm seriously swamped with work. So I won't be coming back.
That's not...
So yeah, bye.
He ended the call abruptly. Our first conversation in a long while lasted only a few seconds. He seemed rushed over the phone, presumably swamped with work. Disheartened that he couldn't come home, I suddenly had an idea. Oh, I know. I can go to him. As a surprise. If he's too busy to come back, I could go visit him. Why didn't I think of this simple solution before? Once I made up my mind, I quickly planned to surprise him by visiting this weekend. On the day of our anniversary, I was on a plane to Houston, where Ken was stationed. It was a Saturday, and he was probably at work. I knew his apartment address, so I decided to wait at a nearby cafe until he came home. I chose not to contact him since it was meant to be a surprise. I watched the apartment from the cafe window and wondering what we would talk about and how surprised he would be. As I looked outside, I saw someone who looked like Ken. Just as I was about to leave the cafe, an unbelievable scene unfolded before me. No way. A young woman quickly approached Ken, who was waiting outside his apartment. He smiled warmly at her, kissed her, and they entered the room arm in arm, laughing. The Ken I knew was gone. My longing to see him shattered in an instant. I couldn't believe it. He lied about being busy with work to cheat? How much more could he disrespect me? I would never forgive them. I'd make sure they regretted their actions. My love for my husband had evaporated, leaving only a desire for revenge. I immediately flew back and visited a reputable law firm, then hired a private investigator to look into his affairs. Within a week, they had gathered ample evidence of his infidelity. Perhaps his guard was down during his assignment. With this evidence, I went to the lawyer to start preparing for divorce, simultaneously packing my belongings for a move. Despite the tight timeline, I finished moving out 2 days before his assignment ended. The condo we lived in was mine from before we married, so I terminated the lease as I moved out. The day Ken returned from his assignment arrived. After dinner, expecting his call, he didn't disappoint. Taking a deep breath, I answered the phone and he immediately exclaimed,
Leah, what the hell is going on?
What do you mean?
Don't play dumb. Why is everything gone? There's hardly any furniture left.
Well, yeah. I moved everything to my new place.
Your new place?
He was bewildered, repeatedly asking,
What's going on?
I took the time to explain everything to him carefully. I moved out. I just don't feel like being your wife anymore.
What? Where did this come from? I just got back from my assignment.
Your assignment, huh? I bet cheating behind my back was fun. As soon as I mentioned cheating, he started squirming, trying to bluff his way out, but he retorted defiantly.
What do you mean cheating? I would never do that.
But you did cheat.
I'm telling you, I didn't. Are you still holding a grudge because I couldn't contact you because of work? I was genuinely busy, working even on weekends.
You're really good at lying. I saw it.
Saw what?
You entering the apartment with a young girl.
What?
He probably didn't fully grasp what I was saying.
That's impossible. I wouldn't cheat.
He mumbled to himself. That's when I sent him all the photos of his cheating that I had taken with my phone. Look, I just sent them. Can you still say you weren't cheating?
What is this?
After I found out about your affair, I hired a detective. I never thought a week of investigation would gather so much evidence. You really let your guard down during your assignment.
No, it's not like that.
Confronted with the evidence, he clearly panicked, insisting it wasn't cheating but just a junior colleague. Of course, that was a blatant lie. The photos taken by the detective showed them kissing on the street and walking arm in arm intimately. There was no escaping it. The more he tries to excuse himself, the more credible the evidence becomes. He doesn't realize he's digging his own grave.
I was just looking after her junior. She's like a sister to me. Leah, you're the only one I love.
Hearing such pathetic excuses, I was beyond anger and just disgusted. This conversation is pointless. It's clear you cheated.
But that's not it. She's just a junior colleague.
So you kiss and walk arm in arm with a junior colleague? Wow, that's sick.
It's a misunderstanding. Let's meet and talk. You'll understand then.
That's when my anger peaked. Shut up.
What? What did you just say?
I said shut up, you jerk. My shout left him speechless. I yelled with enough venom to make sure my resentment was felt. Cut the crap, you prick. You think those excuses will work? Who would believe a lying cheater like you? I don't believe a word you say anymore. I'm done with you.
Wait, Leah, let's at least talk.
There's nothing to talk about anymore. Just so you know, you and that woman will be paying a hefty compensation. Not just that, I'll tell both your parents and your company. Your lives are over, so get ready. I hung up without waiting for a reply, deleted his contact, and completely cut off communication. Later, I divorced him and went through lawyers to demand lump sum compensation from both. Ken paid with almost all his savings, and the mistress had to borrow money to pay her share. Their relationship quickly deteriorated and ended. More accurately, she dumped him. After the divorce, I informed both families and his company, leading to their dismissal since she was a junior colleague from the same company. Losing his savings, his relationship, and his job, he sought help from his parents, but they disowned him after learning about his infidelity. It was a pitiful situation, but he deserved no sympathy. Meanwhile, I moved and started anew, enjoying my work and hobbies. Being alone no longer felt lonely. I've decided to spend my time happily for myself.
I agreed to the divorce. Make sure you pay child support. I told my husband Tim after a lot of thought. However, he just laughed and responded, "Forget about that. I've changed my mind. We're not getting divorced. Let's stay married." What? What is he talking about? He brings up divorce, stresses me out, and now he flips the script? Unbelievable. I'm determined to divorce this man no matter what. I'm Ruth, 36 years old. 6 years ago, I married Tim, who's a year older than me. We live with our 4-year-old son, Jacob. Our lives changed when Jacob was born, but we were happy. Tim was great with our son, and Jacob really enjoyed his time with his dad. Watching them, I felt so content. I always thought this peaceful happiness would last forever. But then, everything changed unexpectedly. One day, Tim came home and said, "I'm thinking of getting back with Sally. I want a divorce." Divorce? Getting back together? I was completely shocked. Sally. I remember that name. She's Tim's ex-girlfriend before he was with me. I'm not asking for a divorce right away. I know this is sudden, and you must be panicked. I'll give you time, especially because of Jacob. I'll definitely pay child support, so don't worry about money. The rest is up to you. After saying that, he just went to take a bath. I couldn't believe he had been cheating. Why a divorce when he loves her son so much? Confused, I confronted him after his bath. "Hey, you're joking, right? It's not April Fool's Day. Is this some kind of prank?" I asked him cheerfully, but he replied without changing his expression. "I wouldn't joke about this. I'm not expecting you to accept it right away. I said I'd give you time. But I was devastated. I couldn't accept this reality. All our happy moments flashed before my eyes, and I started crying. This is so cruel. So cruel. He then sighed heavily and looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. He said, "What then? Are you saying we should stay married even though we don't love each other? Do you think that's best for Jacob? Do you think it's okay to lie to him?" I thought we were in love. Tim rarely raised his voice, but now he was shouting. This is reality. A reality I have to accept. But it's not easy to come to terms with. I still love him. And thinking of Jacob, I don't want a divorce. Do you think it's okay to lie to Jacob? That question from him stuck with me. I don't want to lie to my son, but the idea of being a single mother and providing for Jacob without any struggle was daunting. I spent several days feeling depressed. Then I got a call from my friend Lisa, who had moved away after getting married. We weren't in touch much after our children were born, although we were close enough to attend each other's weddings. She told me, "I'm getting a divorce. I'm moving back, so let's meet up." Her tone was surprisingly cheerful for such shocking news. Here I was, struggling with the idea of divorce, and she seemed so upbeat about it. I immediately agreed to meet her. When we met, she looked a bit worn out, but her straightforward manner hadn't changed. After hearing my story, she immediately criticized Tim. "Just leave him!" But it's not that easy. There's Jacob too. Over time, my dislike for Tim had grown, but I was only concerned about Jacob. "That's it right there," Lisa pointed out. She continued, "You're worried about Jacob, right? I felt the same way. Worried about him having just one parent, financial issues, life in general. That's why it took me so long to decide on a divorce." Exactly. But think about it. Do you really want a cheating man to be your precious son's father? He's neglecting his family for another woman. No matter how good a father he is in front of Jacob, I can't believe he truly cares about him. If he did, he wouldn't betray his family. Her words resonated with me. It was as if a fog had lifted and I found my answer. I decided to get a divorce. Seeing the change in my expression, she continued, "Can't you rely on your parents? I plan to lean on mine for a while. They're happy to live with their grandchild. If their child is in trouble, they'll want to help, no matter their age." That struck me. I had been so overwhelmed by vague fears that I hadn't thought of asking anyone for help. "You're right. I'll talk to my parents," I said as we parted ways. Talking to Lisa had lightened my mood, and I was able to smile more at Jacob that day. Recently, I had been gloomy, and he often looked worriedly at my face. Looking at his sleeping face, I thought, divorce isn't scary. I decided to talk to Tim about it when he got home. "Hey, about that thing we discussed the other day," I started, but he just scratched his head and said, "Did I say something before?" Seriously? He forgot? I can't believe it! I've been agonizing over this for a month, and he just forgets like it's nothing? Annoyed, I blurted out, "The divorce! I agreed to it. Just make sure you pay child support." I stared at him seriously, but his response was shocking. "Oh, that. Forget it. I've changed my mind again. We're not getting divorced. Let's stay married." What? I couldn't help but raise my voice in disbelief. "What do you mean?" "I broke up with Sally, So we don't need to get a divorce anymore. Let's stay married. Jacob needs a father, right? What's that supposed to mean? Oh, and this weekend I'll take us to the zoo. I haven't done much for him lately, and I should act like a father once in a while. His laughter without a hint of guilt angered me. He might care about our son, but he clearly doesn't care about my feelings. Cheating, then casually mentioning divorce, and now he's not divorcing because he broke up with her? How convenient for him. I was furious. I couldn't forgive him. I felt foolish for ever thinking of staying with such a man. I was more determined than ever to divorce him. As I stayed silent, Tim leisurely watched TV as if the matter was settled. My anger was boiling over. I had gathered enough evidence of his affair, given he didn't even try to hide it. But before taking legal action, I wanted to confirm one thing: whether Sally knew Tim was married when they got involved. If she didn't know, I could possibly collaborate with her to sue him. Initially reluctant, Sally agreed to meet after I mentioned alimony. In a carefree tone, she said, "Did I know he was married? Of course, he's my ex. I would obviously hear about his marriage." So she knew. Then why did you break up with him? She laughed dismissively. It got too messy. All the drama. It was just a fling for me. But when he started talking about marrying me, I broke it off. Who would marry such an ordinary man? Tell him to come back when he's earning more. I couldn't believe her nerve. Unapologetic and placing herself above the situation. I was furious with her too. Come back when he's earning more? Who the hell does she think she is? Unforgivable. I raised my voice. I'm suing you and him for alimony. I have all the evidence of the affair. She looked down on me, saying, "Do whatever you want. I won't pay a dime. Tim said he'd cover it." Her audacity was unbelievable, planning to let him pay the alimony for her actions. Moreover, it's not just his money, it's our family's money. This would mean no harm to her, only loss to me. I was livid with Tim for making such a promise. You won't get away with this. That's our family's money. It's not for Tim to freely spend on your alimony. She banged on the table and shouted, "That's not what we agreed on." I stood my ground. I don't care about your agreement. What you did destroyed a family. You think you can do that and remain unscathed? I'll make sure you pay tens of thousands of dollars. I'll drag both of you down. Her bravado faded at my words. Tens of thousands? Wait, I can't. I don't have that kind of money. Please, I beg you, let it go. But her pleading was in vain. Still, she grabbed my arm tightly, desperate. Then an idea struck me. All right, if you help me sue Tim, I'll consider it. Huh? She was stunned. Sue him? How? Claim he deceived you. That way, you can get alimony from him. She frowned, puzzled. But you just said you wouldn't let him use the family money. Wouldn't suing him be the same? If you agree to sue him, I'll go through with the divorce. Then it's no longer family money, and we can punish him. Let's both hit him where it hurts. Hesitantly, she asked, "And you'll forgive me if we do that?" I smiled silently. That night, I told Tim it was over. Regardless of Sally's situation, I had intended to divorce him, and the divorce papers were ready. When I presented them, he raised his voice in disbelief. Why? I said we're not getting divorced. After I've decided to keep our family together, you're still holding on a grudge over a single affair? Are you really gonna take Jacob's father away from him just because you're stubborn? I calmly responded, one affair is more than enough. If you truly cared about our family, you wouldn't have cheated in the first place. Don't use Jacob's name to justify your actions. And thanks to your candid confession, I have all the evidence I need for the affair. I will definitely get alimony and child support. Seeing my resolve, he suddenly started pleading pathetically. Wait, let's talk about this. Think about Jacob's future. Don't take divorce lightly, okay? Take divorce lightly? How dare he? After all the anguish I've gone through, I can contain my anger any longer and raise my voice. Take it lightly? You've got to be kidding me. Who was the one who first mentioned divorce? You! You neglected me and Jacob for your affair and even brought up divorce when you got serious with her. All of this is your fault. Don't make it sound like I'm the one to blame. I pushed the divorce papers towards him again. Are you really going to divorce me? You bet your ass I am. Sign the divorce papers already. Oh, and I'm obviously taking custody of Jacob. He kept pleading, but realizing there was no way out, he finally started filling out the divorce papers. Later, I received a higher amount of alimony and child support than usual. A few months after divorcing Tim, I got a call from Sally. This isn't what we agreed on, she yelled over the phone. I pretended not to know what she was talking about and barely containing my smirk. Don't play dumb! The alimony! You said you'd forgive me if I sued Tim. Why are you asking me for it? I maintained my composure and replied, I think you misunderstood what I said. I said I'd consider it. I never said I'd forgive you. That's not fair. Listen, lady. You took my husband. Adultery is a serious wrongdoing. You can't just commit such an act and expect to get away with it. Please forgive me. I don't have the money to pay the alimony. I thought it would be all over if I sued him. Her voice sounded desperate over the phone, but I pressed on. I won't accept I don't have money as an excuse. You took alimony from Tim, didn't you? You're gonna pay me using that money, so be prepared. I hung up after saying that. I knew from the start that Sally was short on cash. If I demanded alimony without knowing her financial situation, she might escape responsibility. That's why I had her sue Tim first. In the end, she had to pay me an amount plus $30,000 she received from Tim. Everything went according to my plan. Tim sued Sally for setting him up, and she started claiming she did nothing wrong. It's been almost a year since I divorced Tim, and their messy legal battle is still going on. They're buried in debt from the alimony and constantly fighting. They got what they deserved. Meanwhile, I'm living a smooth life with Jacob at my parents' home. They happily welcomed us. I'm really grateful for the comfortable life we have at my parents'. Jacob used to ask about his father, but not anymore. Though he might feel lonely at times, I want to fill his life with so much joy and fun that it outweighs any sadness.
When I returned to my in-laws' house in the distant countryside, my mother-in-law came to pick me up at the station in her car. After my husband got into the passenger seat, I tried to get into the back seat, but the car was locked. It seems like the car is locked, Mom," I said, addressing her through the car window, and then my mother-in-law and husband exchanged glances and chuckled. With a mischievous smile, my mother-in-law then informed me,
I'm not going to let a useless woman who can't even fulfill her duties as a daughter-in-law into my car. Huh? I never liked you from the beginning. You act all high and mighty as a career woman, but don't do a thing for Ryan. I tried to open the car door, but it remained locked till the end. From the passenger seat, my husband smirked and said,
You should learn from this and reflect on yourself a bit. Walk 3 hours back home.
I reached my breaking point at that moment. What's up with this mother and son duo? I'm not going to listen to them anymore. I don't care anymore. Got it. I said it with a strained voice, and my mother-in-law and husband burst into laughter, closed the window, and drove off. An hour later, my husband found himself in a tough spot with me. My name is Kelly Sampson. I'm a 31-year-old working wife. I'm fluent in Spanish and work for a multinational company. Work has been busy but fulfilling, and I've spent my 20s completely devoted to my career. However, before I knew it, my 30s were just around the corner. With no boyfriend in sight, I couldn't help feeling a bit anxious. Yet, the idea of registering with a marriage consultation agency felt daunting. It became a routine for me to unwind at my favorite bar after work and ponder various things. It was during one of those moments that the bar's master approached me and said this.
What's wrong, Kelly? You look down.
Oh, I've been thinking about marriage lately, but I don't have anyone.
Oh, I see. It might be strange for a bartender to say this to a customer, but if there's no one else, how about me?
Huh? The bartender of that bar turned out to be Ryan Sloan, who would later become my husband. Ryan was 5 years older than me and had been managing the bar for 2 years. While initially our relationship was just that of bartender and customer, as we went on several dates, I found myself drawn to Ryan. If he could listen to my work troubles, surely he would understand my job as well. I thought, feeling reassured. Indeed, Ryan often showed concern for my busy schedule. About a year into dating, he proposed to me, and I happily accepted. My parents also approved of our marriage, and I ended up visiting Ryan's family. Later, my parents also gave their approval for our marriage, so we ended up visiting Ryan's family. His family home was in the countryside. I was surprised to learn that it would take a 3-hour walk to reach the nearest train station. We rented a car in Ryan's hometown and headed to his family's house. Ryan's father had passed away early, and his mother lived alone in their apartment. Feeling nervous, I greeted to Ryan's mother, Michelle, upon meeting her. Nice to meet you. I'm Kelly Sampson. I've been dating Ryan. At that moment, my mother-in-law looked me up and down, then said to Ryan,
Ryan, are you really planning to marry someone like her? I thought you'd bring someone cuter. She looks so plain.
I was taken aback by her words.
And if you become his wife, can you really support Ryan, who's busy with managing everything? You'll quit your job, won't you?
I hurriedly explained that I work for a multinational corporation and have no intention of quitting my job.
Is that something worthy of being called a daughter-in-law? You work for some multinational company or whatever, but you're still inexperienced. Ryan, don't stick with a woman like her.
I looked to Ryan as if seeking help, but he responded with,
Come on, Mom. Kelly earns well, and there's no harm in letting her continue her job.
She earns well, does she? Well, I guess that's all right then.
Ryan's words had caused my mother-in-law's demeanor to harden, but I was feeling conflicted.
If you're getting married, don't slack off on your duties as a wife.
In the end, I was granted permission for the marriage, but being told such things left me feeling uneasy. However, our home and my in-laws' house were 4 hours apart. Despite thinking we would live without much interaction with that formidable mother-in-law, I decided to marry Ryan. Afterward, we rented a 3-bedroom apartment near Ryan's shop, and we began our married life. However, Ryan didn't help with any household chores. He would return home later after I had already fallen asleep and sleep until late afternoon. I asked Ryan to help with the housework between waking up and going to work, but he didn't do anything. Hey, Ryan, you haven't done any housework again today. Considering you lived alone before, you should be able to handle some household chores, right?
You're so annoying. We're married now, so isn't housework the wife's job? Even Mom says so. Don't slack off on your duties as a wife.
Even if you say that, you understand that I have a demanding job, right?
What, you think you're so cool working for a multinational company? Just because of that, you can't push me around.
Ryan's remarks made me feel like he was trying to assert dominance based on my higher education and social status. Where did the understanding Ryan, who showed support for my job before marriage, disappear to? With a heavy heart, I had no choice but to do all the housework. About 3 months into our marriage, when I returned home, I was shocked. To my surprise, my mother-in-law had visited our home without any prior notice. Mother, what brings you here?
Oh, didn't Ryan tell you? I'll be staying here for the next 3 months to see if you're fulfilling your duties as a wife properly.
What? Ryan, what does this mean? I looked at Ryan, but he seemed to be feigning innocence. From that day on, the 3-month cohabitation with my mother-in-law began. It was nothing short of hell. Every morning, I was the only one woken up early, and I had to do household chores under my mother-in-law's watchful eye.
Hey, is tonight's dinner fish? Don't treat me like an old lady.
Every day when I cooked and served dinner, my mother-in-law would make sarcastic remarks. There were times when she would even throw away what I had painstakingly prepared. On days when I had to work late, she would stand by the front door waiting for us.
What's the matter with you taking so long as a daughter-in-law? Let me tell you, being a daughter-in-law means...
This is how I end up being forced to sitting cross-legged on the floor and endure long lectures. Despite treating me like a slave, my mother-in-law still demands money from me.
Hey, Kelly, I've been wanting to go see a live performance, you know. Give me money for the tickets.
Well, even if you ask me suddenly like that...
I came all the way to the city and you'd want me to enjoy myself, don't you think? You're such a stingy daughter-in-law.
Then Ryan also says things like,
Come on, it's not a big deal, just give it to her.
Reluctantly, I handed over the money and my mother-in-law snatched it away as if grabbing it forcibly. Over time, the money taken by my mother-in-law amounted to over $2,000 in 3 months. Of course, all living expenses were on our shoulders. My mother-in-law would only ask for money when it suited her, and she would casually make a mess in the room and spend her time as she pleased. Unable to bear with such treatment from my mother-in-law any longer, one day I decided to talk to Ryan about it. Hey, Ryan, your mom is being too much. If you're also my husband, do something about it. Ryan's eyebrows furrowed in response.
What did you say? Are you planning to badmouth my mother?
Huh? No, that's not it.
You probably look down on me and Mom just because you make a little more money, don't you? I see right through you.
What are you saying? As I expressed genuine confusion, Ryan responded.
Anyway, Mom hasn't done anything wrong. She's just disciplining a bad wife like you. If you keep speaking ill of Mom, I have my own idea.
Idea? At that moment, Ryan pulled out a pre-filled divorce form from his bag and slammed it in front of me. Ryan, is this...
If you don't listen to me, I'm fine with getting a divorce. Just so you know, women as unattractive as you won't be desired by anyone if you leave me.
With a dismissive snort, Ryan left the room. I silently looked down at the divorce papers. After the promised 3 months passed, my mother-in-law left. But our relationship remained strained. He still didn't help with household chores and constantly made snide remarks. I grew tired and stopped initiating conversations with Ryan. Eventually, the seasons changed, and it was year-end.
Hey, this New Year's, we're going to my parents' place. Got it?
Ryan just announced it without consulting me. But since I'm married, I have no choice but to comply. Reluctantly, I nodded. On the day we were supposed to visit his parents' house, we traveled by train, and my mother-in-law was supposed to pick us up from the station. When we arrived at the station, her small car was already waiting. Ryan got in like it was nothing, so I tried to open the back door. No matter how hard I pulled, it was locked and wouldn't budge. Mom, it seems to be locked." I called out to them through the car window, and my mother-in-law and Ryan exchanged glances and laughed. With a smirk, my mother-in-law informed me.
"I'm not going to let a useless woman who can't even fulfill her duties as a daughter-in-law into my car."
"Huh?"
"I never liked you from the start. You pretend to be a career woman, but don't serve Ryan at all."
Just open the door, please." I tried to open the car door, but it remained locked till the end. From the passenger seat, my husband smirked and said,
"You should learn from this and reflect on yourself a bit. Walk 3 hours back home."
At that moment, I reached my limit. What's wrong with this family? I won't listen to them anymore. I don't care anymore. "Got it!" With a strained voice, I said that, and my mother-in-law and husband burst into laughter, closed the window, and drove away. I just silently watched their car go. Well, time to go home. Instead of heading to my in-laws, I turned back and headed to the station. I couldn't bear the thought of going to my in-laws anymore. They'll probably be furious, but I don't care anymore. Spotting a train ticket, I immediately boarded. It had been about an hour since my husband and I parted ways. Then my phone rang. The caller was my husband. I ignored it and put my phone in my coat pocket. But the calls kept coming incessantly. He's relentless. Fed up with it all, I stepped out onto the deck to take the call. "Hello?"
"Finally you answered. Where are you?"
In a flustered voice, my husband asked, and I calmly responded. "Why do you keep calling so many times? What do you want?"
"After that, we were going to drive back, and I told my mom we'd go sightseeing. But then, we got into an accident."
"Huh? An accident?"
"We got injured too, and dealing with the other party is a hassle. They're foreigners. They're furious and can't understand what we're saying. Aren't you good at Spanish? Can't you intervene?"
"Oh, really?"
"Are you even listening? They're driving a really expensive car and berating us in Spanish, and we're in trouble. Hurry up and come. Where are you walking right now?"
"I'm not walking."
"Huh?"
"I'm on the train now. Seems like we're entering a tunnel. Might lose signal."
"Huh? Are you kidding me? Are you really going home?"
Entering a tunnel was a lie, but I hung up the phone. And then I smirked. I went home, packed my bags, and immediately moved to a week-to-week rental. After settling in, I headed to a certain place. It was the first day back to work after the New Year's holiday. After finishing work and stepping outside the company, my mother-in-law leaning on crutches and my husband with his neck in a cast were waiting for me. "Hey, what's going on?" My mother-in-law and husband turned red, probably because of my displeased expression.
"The house is empty. You're not answering the phone. What are you doing? Stop messing around."
I didn't want to cause a scene near the office, so I took them to a nearby cafe.
"Just because you got left at the station, you think it's okay to leave like that? Are you still a wife?"
My mother-in-law chimed in, trying to provoke me. Ignoring her, I ordered coffee, which seemed to annoy Ryan even more.
"You didn't come, so we had a hard time afterward. The police came, and we ended up dealing with the other party directly. They're foreigners, you know."
"Oh, really?"
"I'll let your attitude slide. So talk to the other party right away. Look, they're calling again."
Saying that, Ryan shoved the phone at me. I reluctantly answered and talked to the other party. After asking a few questions, I hung up.
"What did they say?"
I casually replied to Ryan's question. "They were really angry. They said your mom ran a red light and crashed into their car." The other party is a famous celebrity overseas and wants compensation for medical expenses and the cost of their totaled car. The car's value is over $300,000.
What?
My husband and mother-in-law froze in shock. Well, you should leave it to the insurance company, right? Saying this casually, my mother-in-law looked embarrassed.
The insurance. We didn't have coverage because the premiums were too expensive.
Oh dear. I chuckled, which enraged Ryan.
What's with that attitude since earlier? Are you still my wife? Sort it out with them right now, so we don't have to pay so much. Even if it goes to court, you should be the interpreter.
Seemingly emboldened, my mother-in-law chimed in.
That's right. Since you're rich, this is the least you can do. Fulfill your duties as a wife.
But I'm not your wife anymore, am I?
Huh?
I explained calmly. After returning home and completing the moving procedures, I immediately went to submit the divorce papers. I had kept the divorce papers that you had previously filled out as a threat, so I retrieved them.
You! What a selfish thing!
Exactly! How dare you!
Although Ryan and his mother scolded me, I decisively cut them off. You two are no longer my family. You're strangers to me. Now you can pay up to $300,000 or whatever it takes to suffer, you jerks. And then, leaving the two of them in turmoil, I left. It seems their injuries were safely treated afterward. Originally, the injuries weren't that severe, but my mother-in-law's car was totaled, and they apparently faced a hefty claim from the overseas celebrity they had the accident with. Initially, Ryan's business wasn't doing that well, and his income alone couldn't sustain their lifestyle. There was no way that Ryan, with such an income, and my mother-in-law, who was unemployed and living in an apartment, would be able to come up with the money. So they ended up borrowing it. Now Ryan has returned to his parents' house, and the two of them are living in a small, run-down apartment while working like slaves to repay their debts. Even hearing that, I feel no sympathy. Rather, I'm living my life to the fullest. On the other hand, after my divorce, I lived alone for a few years and focused on my work. Thanks to the decrease in stress, I was able to achieve results at work and even got promoted. A faithful man I recently met through work has asked me to be in a relationship with marriage in mind. I intend to accept it. From now on, I want to pursue true happiness while valuing myself.
Some folks might have been bummed out, discovering their partner sneaking around cheating. But what I went through was way worse. Get this. My husband actually gave me a heads up he was going to cheat.
An old flame invited me over, so please allow me this one night of infidelity.
When I said okay, he was over the moon.
Thank you. Honestly, really is the best policy in a marriage, huh?
Yeah, honesty is great and all. So I decided to live by that too, no matter what happens to him. I'm Beth. My boyfriend John can't tell a lie to save his life and can never turn anyone down when they ask for a favor, always ready to lend a hand. That's part of why I love him so much. Getting married felt like we were on our way to becoming that couple with no secrets, full of trust. One weekend, he comes to me all serious and says,
Beth, you fell for my honesty, right?
That's right.
And my inability to say no to people.
Uh-huh. Then he slowly pulls out this receipt from his wallet.
Being honest with you, Beth, I went here on my way back from work yesterday.
Showing me a receipt from some downtown club. You spent $1,000?
My boss really wanted to go, and then ditched me with a bill.
This can be expensed, right?
The thing is, our company doesn't really do entertainment expenses.
Then you shouldn't just say no.
You know I can't say no. Other guys might hide this from their wives, but I want to be upfront. You'd want that, right?
Well, I guess it's better than sneaking around.
Right? I knew you would see it my way.
This only encouraged him to start splurging more often, showing me receipt every time.
Hey Beth, I found this wallet I was eyeing at the department store and just had to buy it.
$700? You had your old wallet, and why go for something so pricey?
I was just window shopping, but the salesperson convinced me to come in, and I just couldn't resist.
That's quite a splurge.
But I can't just say no when I pushed. You know me.
And it happened again the next day.
Beth, this is a tab from last night's drinks.
Seems a bit steep, doesn't it?
Turns out, I ended up covering for my juniors.
What do you mean?
I suggested going out, and they said they were broke until payday. I couldn't just ignore that.
But we are tight on cash too, with that bonus not here yet.
We've got savings. I just can't say no.
He reasoned, emphasizing his inability to refuse. It's like he thinks he can get away with anything as long as he sets up to me. Then one day, he's like,
Beth, is it okay if I go out this weekend?
Sure, but where are you going?
Actually, an ex-girlfriend called me up for a chat.
And you are meeting her alone?
Yeah, she says it's something private.
This ex, Susan, you showed me on social media. She's married, right? Doesn't it seem odd for her to meet a married man alone?
What? You think there is something going on between me and Susan? If I had something to hide, I wouldn't be telling you.
But...
Don't worry. I've already said yes anyway.
Without asking me first?
How could I refuse when she's depending on me? You know, I can't do that.
Okay. I agreed, though the thought of him meeting his ex alone worried me. And sure enough, my fears were justified. Late that night, John calls.
Sorry for the late contact, Beth.
I've been worried. What time will you be back? You can catch the last train, right?
Actually, I can't make it home tonight.
What do you mean?
Susan is having trouble with her husband and doesn't want to go home tonight. She told him she is staying at a friend's.
Wait. I'm lost. So was this the plan all along? For you two to stay together?
Yeah, seemed like she wanted to distract herself by meeting me, just for old time's sake.
Old time's sake? Like when you were dating? That's cheating.
But it's just for tonight. That's why I'm telling you.
Excuse me? Cheating is cheating, whether it's for a night or not.
But it's better than doing it secretly, right? This is my way of showing I'm honest.
Unbelievable.
She insisted she needed me, saying no one else would do. After being asked like that, you understand I can't refuse, right? Please, just for tonight.
My husband was basically asking me to approve his cheating. It didn't seem right at all. As I struggled for words, a voice that seems to be Susan interrupted. John, are you done yet? He quickly told me to hold on and started talking to her, apparently forgetting to put me on hold. Their conversation was crystal clear. John, are you sure you can convince your wife?
Just a bit more push. She loves that I can't lie and can't say no when asked. So she's just a dumb woman who will forgive anything as long as I'm honest.
Really? That's so stupid.
Right? Once she says okay, it's all good. If I declare it beforehand, I can meet you as much as I want. Being able to cheat this openly is all thanks to me choosing such a foolish wife.
John, you're really smart when it comes to things like this.
Yeah, and if I come up with a reasonable excuse, she will let me spend as much money as I want. I will buy your designer back next time.
Really?
Yeah, I would just tell her Junior asked for it, and it will be fine.
Oh, I love you, John.
Me too, Susan.
Now hurry up and convince that foolish wife of yours.
On it.
Holding my phone, my hands trembled. So I guess this was who really was. I had been deceived by him all this time. By the time I realized it, my feelings for him had completely cooled off. Unaware that I had overheard the conversation, John came back on the line.
Sorry to keep you waiting, Beth. She really doesn't want to go home.
It's fine. Listening to you, I realize how important it is to be honest. Do what you want.
Thank you, Beth. I knew you would understand.
He ended the call, sounding pleased. Right after that, I made another call. Having done what needed to be done, I was finally able to sleep. The next morning, John returned home in a great mood.
I'm back.
Welcome back. You seem quite happy.
Yeah, I was just thinking about how great you are. If I had gone back then, I would have felt terrible towards Susan. But I hate keeping secrets from you, so being honest was the right choice. Being honest is really important, huh?
Yes, it is. Will you always be honest with me?
Of course. I will never lie or keep secrets from you. No matter what happens, I will tell you everything.
Don't forget those words. Just then, the doorbell rang. Looks like they've arrived. John asked, puzzled.
Who?
I silently let the visitor in. The man who appeared confronted John immediately.
So you must be Susan's lover. What do you mean?
Right after John's declaration of infidelity, I had called Susan's husband Mark. Your wife is having an affair with my husband. He seems to have suspected something and quickly believed me. He wanted to talk to my husband, so I gave him our address. John, comparing me and Mark, was visibly nervous. Mark said,
I heard from your wife that you were with mine last night. Explain yourself. Beth told you?
He seems to finally grasp the situation and started to explain hurriedly.
It's not what you think. It seems there's been a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Yes, I was with Susan last night, but it was like a reunion. Nothing happened.
I quickly intervened. John, forgot what you said earlier? You promised to be honest. You told me last night was just a one-time thing and asked me to forgive your affair with Susan. Hearing this, Mark became even more furious.
So, you were cheating after all.
Realizing he couldn't deny it any longer, John finally admitted to the affair. As he apologized profusely, Mark threatened to sue for damages. In the end, John had no choice but to accept whatever was demanded of him. After making him sign a document for the compensation and seem satisfied, Mark finally left. Once we were alone, John turned on me.
Why the hell did you contact her husband?
Because you said we should always be honest, and it wouldn't be fair if I was the only one who knew the truth. He had no comeback and lowered his voice.
But not everyone is as understanding as you. Let's forget the past and focus on how to repay this compensation. We can't go on living like before. This debt won't pay itself off. He really charged us a hefty sum.
Well, you don't have the right to refuse, do you? It's not like you were in a position to negotiate the amount.
Yeah, but if it's you and me, we can surely get through this. Beth, can you take on more work?
Why should I?
There is a limit to how much we can cut back on living expenses, and my company doesn't allow side jobs. You will need to take on more work and put that towards a repayment.
No, I'm asking why I should pay for your compensation.
Because we are a married couple. We're supposed to be one.
Don't be ridiculous. Why should I, the one cheated on, have to clean up your mess?
But you agreed to my affair. That means you have to pay too.
That's ridiculous. If anything, I should be the one demanding compensation.
Demanding compensation between spouses doesn't make sense.
Yes, it does. I have no intention of staying your wife any longer.
What? Why?
Don't you understand? Reflect on your actions. Spending our money because you can't say no, and then cheating on top of that. Do you think anything is forgivable just because you're honest? I don't want to be with such a stupid husband anymore. I handed him a divorce papers I had prepared. Let's get a divorce. Our marriage is over.
But we've been doing fine until now.
You're the only one who thinks that. I have been tolerating and lying about my feelings all this time. From now on, I too will live honestly. Honesty is important, just like you said. My honest feeling now is that I want to divorce you as soon as possible. That's all there is to it.
Beth!
Goodbye. Good luck with your life, you honest jerk. I had already packed my things. I spilled out everything I wanted to say and left the house. The house would eventually be disposed of and become part of the division of assets. I don't want to see John's face anymore. With the affair being so evident, getting compensation is certain. It might be nice to stay somewhere luxurious for a while and slowly look for a new partner. He didn't say anything back that day, perhaps having no room to argue. The next day, as soon as I arrived at work, he called me.
Did you talk to people at my company about me?
After his declaration of cheating, I hadn't just contacted Susan's husband. I had told everyone about the affair's details, his workplace, both our parents, relatives, and friends. Yes, if you want to be so honest, it's best that not just I know the truth, but others as well. He raised his voice more than ever before.
Are you out of your mind? There are things you should and shouldn't say.
I didn't know you had such criteria. So telling your wife you're going to cheat is considered okay for you?
Alright, I was wrong, Beth. Help me. I was called to the executive office first thing in the morning, and I'm being transferred to the countryside.
Oh, really?
With the affair rumors spreading throughout the company, I can't work at the headquarters anymore. My salary will drop significantly, and there's the alimony repayment. I can't make it without you.
You should have thought more about my feeling then. It's too late now.
You! I'm trying to make amends here, and being transferred is partly because what you did to the company, so I won't pay your alimony.
Oh, you're refusing to pay the compensation I'm asking for? I thought you couldn't refuse requests from others.
That depends on the situation.
You fell for your own double standards. Basically, you've destroyed yourself. Unfortunately, I won't withdraw the compensation claim. It's something you have to pay legally, whether you like it or not.
Fine. I won't ask you for anything.
So you will pay it then. Remember, we're splitting the savings for the asset division. So don't touch my share.
I know. I've done favors for friends before. If I just ask around, plenty will lend me money.
Are you sure about that? If they know it's for your cheating compensation, your friends might think it's your just desserts and not want to lend you money.
I'm not going to tell them that. I will just say I need a loan because I'm in trouble.
They already know, even if you don't tell them.
Did you tell my friends too?
Being honest is your policy, right?
Gosh darn it! Then I have no choice but to ask my mom.
Your mother, huh?
Don't tell me you.
Yes, I've told your parents everything too. Being honest is tough, huh? During your affair with Susan, I had to inform Susan's husband, your company, friends, and even your parents and relatives. It was quite busy.
You piece of...
I could feel his despair over the phone. He's facing days of repaying alimony alone in the countryside, a result of the seeds he sowed by wielding honesty as a shield. Meanwhile, I've met another man years later, and I'm about to remarry. This time, my partner is someone who considers my feelings, knows when to say no to bad things, and can refuse properly. It seems obvious, but only after leaving John did I realize the importance of such basic things. This time around, it looks like I will have a happy marriage life.
My sister, who had been hanging around our house where my husband and I live, suddenly said something like this one day.
Come to think of it, you guys have been married for about a year and a half, right? Are you not planning to have children?
Before I could respond, my husband answered.
It's not that easy, you know.
Oh, so you're dealing with infertility, big sister?
My sister's eyes were maliciously smiling. I remained silent, and she came up with something outrageous.
Poor husband having a wife who's infertile. Should I offer to help?
Surprisingly, even my husband went along with it.
Maybe we should consider divorce.
At this moment, I reached my limit. There are things you can and cannot say, you scumbags. But quietly, I informed my husband, Samuel. Well then, let's get divorced.
Huh?
My husband and sister chimed in together. Both of them looked up as if seeking divine intervention. My name is Haley. I'm a 30-year-old part-time housewife. I was born as the eldest daughter of the Kirk family. My family consists of my father, mother, and my younger sister, Maya, who is 3 years younger than me. Though I grew up in such a normal household, my childhood was plagued by insecurities. The root of those insecurities lies with my sister, Maya. My sister was far more attractive than me. With her big, sparkling eyes, long eyelashes, long limbs, and perfect figure, not to mention her knack for being charming, she was praised by relatives as just like a doll. Our parents showered both of us, including Samuel, with affection, but Maya secretly looked down on me.
If I were as plain as my older sister, I might not have survived.
To think she would say something like that. Yet whenever she needed something, she would come to me and say,
Big sis, please.
I always found Maya's two-faced nature hard to deal with. Wanting to break free from such a relationship, I moved out when I entered school. After graduating, I landed a job at a major corporation and worked diligently. Then one day, a representative from an advertising agency we dealt with asked me,
Would you like to go out for a meal together sometime?
From there, the person who would later become my husband was Samuel. Samuel was 1 year older than me. He seemed refreshingly handsome, like someone working at a major advertising agency. I thought he was almost too good for me. Samuel has been approaching me since we first met. With no prior experience in romance, I found myself increasingly drawn to him, as he always treated me kindly. After a year of dating, Samuel proposed to me. Then, when we went to my parents' house for marriage arrangements, they were overjoyed.
Haley, I'm so happy about your marriage, dear. Oh, isn't he a fine young man?
While such discussions continued, Samuel looked at Maya in surprise.
You're kidding, right? Maya?
Huh? Samuel?
The two of them remained frozen, eyeing each other. What's wrong? Do you two know each other? When I asked, Samuel explained.
We were in the same university club. Maya was a junior.
Huh? Is that so? Then Maya chimed in.
Meeting Samuel here of all places? What a surprise.
Yeah, it's funny how things work out like this.
At that moment, I didn't pay much attention to it. But later, I would come to regret it. Following that, Samuel and I started our newlywed life. Samuel was busy, but he always took the time to help with household chores and look after me. On weekends, he would take me on trips or we'd go to the movies together. I'm glad I married Samuel. I hope we can continue to enjoy peaceful days like this in the future. It was during one of these times while out with Samuel at the shopping mall on a holiday that I ran into Maya.
Samuel with big sister. What a coincidence.
Saying that, my sister approached us with a smile. Oh, what a coincidence indeed. Maya, are you shopping today?
Yeah, one of my college club friends is getting married, so I came to buy a gift.
Then Samuel chimed in.
Maya, you know I'm familiar with that, right?
Julie, you probably know her, right?
Oh, that girl. So nostalgic.
Then Samuel and Maya began reminiscing about memories from their club days, things I didn't know about. I was at a loss, feeling awkward, and had no choice but to be there.
Oh yeah, Samuel, let's exchange WhatsApp messages for the congratulations, okay?
Sure thing. Get in touch later.
Right in front of me, they exchanged contact information. For a moment, I thought, I don't like this. But technically, they were relatives, so it wasn't unusual. That's what I tried to reassure myself of.
So, are you two going shopping now?
Oh, we were actually about to head back.
As Samuel responded, Maya grinned.
Well then, maybe I'll join ya.
Maya?
I want to see your love nest. Actually, I have a fiancé and I'd like to get some ideas for the future.
Oh, Maya, you have a fiancé?
Yeah, he's feeling lonely overseas right now. I plan to get married once he's back. So it's okay with you, big sis, right?
Maya, putting on a show of being close only at such times, sweetly spoke. I wanted to refuse, but since Samuel seemed okay with it, I could only nod. We stopped to buy wine on the way and then headed home.
Haley, make sure the snacks are low calorie, okay? I'm on a diet.
Naturally, Maya comes with such instructions. Then Samuel chimed in.
Hey, Maya, you don't need a diet, do you? Your figure is still great as always.
Oh, stop it. This is the result of hard work, you know?
Samuel and Maya exchanged such banter, leaving me behind as they started drinking together.
Oh, Maya's a kindergarten teacher. She's pretty, so I bet the kids adore her, right?
Well, yeah, I love kids, so I chose this profession.
Come to think of it, you were studying early childhood education in college, weren't you? I do love kids too, you know?
While I was preparing snacks, Samuel and Maya continued to chat happily. The conversation was filled with anecdotes that only they understood, leaving me feeling excluded. Just as I was about to bring the snacks I'd made, Maya said this.
Just leave it over there. Hey, Samuel, do you remember that thing?
Even though it was my own home, I felt uncomfortable. As time passed and it grew late, Maya said goodbye and left. Samuel turned to me, seeing how exhausted I was, and said something.
Maya is such a good girl, isn't she? Having a sister who's both beautiful and has a great personality must make you happy, right?
I could only force a wry smile. Maya started doing this more often afterward.
Since my fiancé is overseas, I have a lot of free time,
she'd say. Each time, she'd bring alcohol and spend hours chatting with Samuel, sharing old stories and complaining about work. During that time, it felt like I was completely ignored. Unable to bear it any longer, one day I brought it up with Samuel. Hey, Samuel, isn't Maya coming over to our house a bit too much? Maybe she should tone it down a bit.
What's the matter, Haley? It's fine. She's your sister.
But every time she comes, my plans get disrupted, and she only talks about things I'm not aware of.
Are you feeling jealous? You're cute being jealous like that.
With that, Samuel tried to pat my head. I quickly avoided it and firmly told him in a strong tone. I'm serious about this. Cut it out. I'll talk to Maya myself. At that, Samuel's expression turned sour.
What's the matter? I just think it's better to be on good terms. You saying that? It's cold, Haley.
Huh?
I didn't think you were this narrow-minded, Haley. Don't say unnecessary things to Maya.
With that, Samuel turned his face away and headed to the bathroom. Left alone, all I could do was let out a huge sigh. Even though I had once asked her to tone it down, Maya's sudden visits continued. Whenever Samuel was reliably at home on weekends, Maya would show up almost every week. Despite my reluctance, I endured Maya's persistence. About a year into our marriage, Samuel mentioned that he was busy with a new project at work and his returns grew later and later. He would often work overtime, coming home past midnight almost daily. I worried about him and took care of him diligently. During that time, Samuel began to grow distant from me. He hardly helped with household chores, and there was little conversation with Samuel during the week, only drinking with Maya on weekends. Besides Maya's visits and Samuel's attitude, there was something else that troubled me. Even after a year of marriage, we couldn't conceive a child. Despite our efforts and timing, there were no signs of pregnancy. It seems like it's a no-go again this month, Samuel. As I reported to Samuel, who came home late with a drooping shoulder, he grimaced.
Seriously? Not again?
I was surprised by his reaction. Initially, he used to say,
Don't worry, let's keep trying.
But...
Didn't I say I wanted kids soon? Maybe the problem lies with you.
I've been to the fertility clinic, but the doctor said there's no issue.
No, that can't be right. The cause of infertility is usually on the woman's side. You should get checked more thoroughly.
That's... Turning away from me, speechless, Samuel had fallen asleep. Samuel, he's clearly changed. Why? Could it be that there's another woman? For the first time, I considered that possibility. The face that immediately came to mind was Maya's. But such a thing couldn't be true. She says she had a fiancé, and it's absolutely forbidden for my sister and my husband to have any relationship. Still, my suspicions lingered, leaving me restless. I felt there was no choice but to confront this head-on, so I decided to request a fresh investigation into Samuel's affairs. At almost the same time, I also decided to look into something else. While waiting for the investigation results, Maya often visited. Samuel would entertain her happily. From the outside, they seemed quite close. Yet, in my presence, they maintained the stance of classmates and brother-in-law, and I remained unable to grasp the truth. Then, several weeks later, on that day as usual, Maya made an unannounced visit to our home in the middle of the day. Samuel and she were reminiscing over drinks as they always did. I silently endured it, feeling like part of the background. Suddenly, Maya changed the topic.
By the way, it's been about a year and a half since you and Samuel got married, right? Aren't you two planning to have kids?
Before I could speak, Samuel responded.
It's not so easy.
Huh? Is that so? Haley, are you infertile?
Maya's eyes were smirking. Before I could respond, she said something outrageous.
It's unfortunate that Samuel's marriage partner is infertile. Shall I offer to help?
Surprisingly, Samuel went along with it.
Should we divorce and try asking Maya? She seems like she'd make a good mom.
I reached my breaking point at this moment. There are some things you can say and some things you can't say, you scumbags. But I calmly told Samuel the truth. Well then, let's get divorced.
Huh?
Maya and Samuel locked eyes. Both widened their eyes in surprise.
Hey, Haley, what are you talking about? It's a joke, right?
That's right, sis. I have a fiancé, you know. You can tell it's just for fun, right?
Seeing the two of them grinning, I spoke up again. Do you think I'm clueless? In front of their eyes, I scattered several photos onto the table. Among them were pictures of Samuel and Maya walking arm in arm, and entering a hotel, among other scenes.
Wait, what is this?
To Maya, whose eyes widened in shock, I explained. I put a tracking device on Samuel. You two had something going on, didn't you?
It's not... Haley, wait! This isn't what you think.
Though Samuel turned pale and tried to explain, Maya already wore an expression of resignation.
Well, if it's already out in the open, there's nothing I can do about it. It's inevitable, isn't it? Since Samuel ended up liking me more than my plain and boring older sister, it can't be helped, right?
So that's your argument. Does your fiancé know about this? At that moment, Maya's expression turned anxious.
Well, it's none of his business, right?
None of his business? It's a big deal, because right now I'm on the phone with him.
Huh?
At that point, I showed Maya the screen of my phone. There, Maya's fiancé's name was displayed.
Why?
You openly tagged him in your engagement announcement on social media, didn't you? So I contacted him from there.
You!
In that moment of demon-like fury from Maya, a voice came through the phone.
Maya, Haley showed me the evidence. You were really cheating, huh? I'm done with you. I'm breaking off the engagement. And you'll be paying me compensation too.
What? No way! Wait a minute! Hey!
Despite Maya shouting at the screen, the call was unilaterally disconnected. My sister looked momentarily stunned, then glanced at me.
You've gone too far. I'll never forgive you. I'm going to snatch Samuel away completely.
Oh, really?
Yes, that's right. I'm going to marry Samuel and live happily ever after raising adorable babies. As for you, with your infertility, you can just live miserably after losing your husband to your sister. Right, Samuel?
At this, Samuel, who had been pale until then, suddenly perked up.
Yeah, that's right. That could work. Maya is definitely cuter than you, Haley, and I do want kids. If it's come to this with you, Haley, let's get a divorce.
Upon hearing this, Maya proudly linked arms with Samuel. I calmly took out the pre-signed divorce papers. Then, please sign this. Samuel hesitated for a moment, but pressured by Maya, he signed the divorce papers. After making sure of this, I put the divorce papers back into my bag.
Wow, you've got guts. Well, good luck, big sis.
Haley, I'm sorry, but I want children too.
I stood up and addressed them. I'll give this to the happy couple as a present. They looked puzzled as they examined the document I handed over. Eventually, as they peered into it, Maya muttered,
Natural conception is hopeless. What is this?
It's Samuel's test results from the infertility clinic. I had his sample examined.
What?
Samuel and Maya turned pale instantly.
Are you saying I'm infertile?
No way. With this, we won't be able to have children even if we get married, right?
Well, that's true. But as long as there's love, isn't it okay? As I said this with a half smile, Maya became distraught.
That's impossible. I can't marry a man who's shooting blanks like this.
Hey, Maya, what did you just say?
The two of them panicked and began to argue. I smiled and said to them at last, Oh, and by the way, I'll be suing both of you for damages. Rot in hell, you pieces of trash. And thus I departed from the room that had descended into chaos. Later, Samuel and I finalized our divorce. With the help of a lawyer, I was able to claim a larger amount than the market value in property division and damages. Samuel repeatedly called me saying Maya and I have broken up. Please, give me another chance. But I chose to block his number. Eventually, he seemed to have become like a recluse, shocked by the revelation of his infertility. He quit his job and is now in a state of despair. Maya received simultaneous damages claims from me and her ex-fiancé. She sought help from her parents, but it seems she was estranged from them. She ended up burdened with debt and quit her daytime job, now working in the nightlife scene. Even hearing all this, I feel no sympathy whatsoever. I believe they got what they deserved. As for me, 2 years later I remarried to a faithful coworker. Life with him is blissful, and we recently discovered I'm pregnant. I want to build a genuine happiness with my beloved family from now on. With these thoughts in mind, I patted my growing belly again today.